Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Mike Ames Recruitment Show, where we are going to be talking about how to build a personal brand without the BS. Now, we have a great guest today in Andrew, who will share practical ways to build and promote your personal brand. But before we bring Andrew on, Mike, I want to ask you, why are we talking about this and why are we talking about it today?
Okay, a couple of reasons, really. First of all, something I didn't know is that LinkedIn has just changed its algorithm. It doesn't like to call it an algorithm anymore. It's actually created this thing called 360 Brew. And if you're interested in that, I published a LinkedIn post on it today. Go and read about that there. But it's changing the way in which our stuff gets discovered and promoted, including how you find jobs and how people that you're trying to reach find jobs and a whole bunch of different stuff that relates to LinkedIn. So an element of that is what you're portraying yourself as, your personal brand. And so it's incredibly important, I think, to promote yourself in a way that you want to be received. And that's what your personal brand is. So it's just fortuitous. I thought it would be a good thing to talk about and to get Andrew on because he's an expert in it. But actually, it turns out the timing was really good.
Yeah, perfect. And do you want to, before we bring him on, do you want to talk a little about our guest today?
Okay, yeah, well, he is the CEO of Fraser Dove, which is a 50-person business, international recruitment firm. But that's not why he's here today. Why he's here today is because he is an expert in personal brands. He writes a lot about it. He speaks a lot about it. He appears at events. He goes on podcasts. He's coming on our show today. So, and he knows a lot about it. And I thought it'd be great for us to kind of really dig into and discuss this subject, which is going to be increasingly important if you want to use LinkedIn as your chief sort of commercial tool to actually get business and find people to place. So shall we bring him in?
We will. And we are very lucky today to have Andrew here. Hello, Andrew. How are you doing?
Hello, good afternoon. Yep, very good. How are you?
Having no time of my life running the show, so
That's the
keeping
spirit.
that in line.
The Kirsty Ames show, yeah, we love it. Yeah,
now, as we mentioned, we are really lucky to have Andrew here today. So if anybody does have any questions, if they want to try and stump Andrew, by all means, ask anything you would like, and he's kindly agreed to answer them for us. So without further ado, let's get in with what I think is probably the question that we always start with, which is, what is personal branding and why should I, as a recruiter, even bother about it?
Yeah, perfectly fair question. I mean, I guess the first thing to say on personal brands, and Mike and I have discussed this a couple of times in the past, is that everybody already has one, Kirsty. This idea that you're creating a personal brand isn't really the right idea because we all have a personal brand. Our personal brand is how people view us. It's how people feel when they interact with us. It's what people say about us when we're not in the room, but they're talking about us. All of that is your personal brand. You already have one. Everyone watching this show already have one. But what we have the opportunity to do now with modern technology is to amplify that personal brand to our benefit. And I think in recruitment, we have a unique challenge. And the unique challenge in recruitment is that we don't have just one audience or two audiences. We actually have three different audiences that we're looking to attract into our world on an ongoing basis. So we're looking to attract candidates that we can place. We're looking to attract other recruitment professionals to go with us on the journey and to come and work with us, but also looking to attract customers and clients. And the great thing about building a personal brand is that it helps with all three of those in quite a powerful way. And I've got a very quick story that I wanted to share, particularly on the client side, because I know, that in the current market, last 12 months, some organizations have been looking at new BD techniques and trying to work out how to fill the funnel. 8 years ago, I was in the car with my CEO at the time. I worked for a business called Executives Online. We were 85-person search firm, and we were on the way to meet an exec at a big airline, massive airline. Now, this airline had been in the sights of our firm for probably about 12 months or so, and we'd never had any luck with them. But we got invited in to talk about a couple of search projects. And we sat down with this high-powered exec at Waterside, just outside Heathrow. Amazing offices, all quite intimidating. I put my best suit on that day when that was still the go, and the shoes were very shiny. It was very much that vibe. And I sat down to speak to this exec, and he sold to me for the first 30 minutes. And my CEO was with me on this meeting, was kind of looking, going, what's going on here? And we got to the end of the meeting and I said, right, well, just before we proceed, do you want to know anything about us or do you want to know anything about the business? And he went, oh, no, not at all. I've been following your blogs for the last few months and I want you to run this project for me. And I was like,
Nice.
like this dude bought from us way before we turned up.
I think that is such a powerful story, because we find the same with the show, don't we, Kirsty? Is that people watch the show, and we are going to talk about video a little later, I know. People watch the show and they feel that they know us because they see us chatting and Kirsty humiliating me because I'm old and smell of cabbage. Yeah, I know. Whatever. But she sees this and the way in which we are and our personalities come through and we talk about different things, and so when they engage with us, it's like, yeah, I know all that stuff because I've been following you. I get it. And you're right, actually. Funny you should say that. I had a case very recently where an American prospect had approached us, sent me an email out of the blue, well, LinkedIn message out of the blue. We started to talk and he knew more about some of my shows than I did. I'd forgotten a lot of the things that we talked about, but he'd watched everything. And I think you're right. But you don't know that's going on, do you? You think, well, putting stuff out, putting content out. And it's like, yeah, well, does anyone read it? Well, yeah, they do. They do. They read it and they watch it. So you better get it right, is what I say.
Absolutely. And they've chosen to work with you before you've even spoken. Yeah. As long as you don't completely screw up the meeting, they've already made that buying decision in their mind, which is just, that is the essence of good content and good personal branding. So.
Well, I think going back to what you said earlier, I used to teach personal branding to lawyers, about 20 years ago. And that was an exciting experience. Not
tough audience for sure.
Yeah, man, they were, because they really didn't want to do anything, to be fair. But half the problem was that they weren't really clear what their personal brand was. Because I said there's this thing about pigeonholing, which is a human thing. From when we were on the plains of Africa, if I approach that person, he's going to kill me. I need to know. So we learn about people and we internalize that. And then we don't have to reevaluate them every time we meet them or when we see them. We just know what they are because we've, and that pigeonhole experience that's why first impressions count, because that's when we're filling out the pigeonhole. And your personal brand is the information that people need to pigeonhole you. So you can choose not to do anything, and as Andrew says, they'll make their own mind up from the little bits that they pick up, or you can shape exactly what it is that you want. Then they'll pigeonhole you in the right place. Then the rest of it becomes so much easier. So personal brand, I think, is incredibly important, I have to say.
I think we can all agree on that, which is why we're spending today's show on, and we've lovely got Andrew. Okay, so I think I understand what a personal brand is. I think I understand kind of the benefit of it as a recruiter. Knowing how powerful it can be, knowing how it can bring you, candidates, customers, and potential team members. Why, Andrew, do you think that more people don't commit to building a strong personal brand or put a lot of energy into it?
Yeah, great question. So I think there's two main afflictions that people suffer that gets in the way of them doing this. The first one is definitely analysis paralysis. And having worked with lots of people and trying to help them build a personal brand, they completely overthink every post. They try and put things that are almost McKinsey-like level publications online rather than sharing their authentic thoughts, and end up posting nothing because they're completely overanalyzing it. I think there's also a huge fear, and it's kind of a British thing in particular, this about not wanting to stick your head above the parapet, knowing that some of your mates are probably going to screenshot the video and take the mick out of you, all that stuff. I think there's like a social element that stops people that drive that paralysis as well. And there's no doubt, when I started doing video, I was getting pals putting pictures of that with David Brent memes. I don't help myself with the goatee, right? With David Brent memes in the WhatsApp groups, in the tennis groups, right? So you are going to get a bit of that. So I think all of that drives a bit of fear. I think the other thing is what we call content constipation, whereby people want to do it and have got over the fear, but they just don't know what to post, don't know where to start, and they sit there staring at the screen and the keyboard and are trying to create from scratch. And I think that's a real error, trying to create from scratch rather than already having lots of content ideas and you just pick which one you're going to go with that day, which is where you want to get to. You want to have a pipeline of ideas that just come from your everyday interactions. So yeah, I think there are two major hurdles. What do you think? What's your experience?
I agree with both of those, especially, again, the worst case scenario ever was the lawyers. I think if I can teach lawyers to build a personal brand, I can certainly do it for recruiters. That's for damn sure. But the worst case was, as you pointed out, is trying to get everything right. And it's like, no. We just want to put stuff out, really. I think the other thing is a lack of clarity on what it is that they stood for. What is their personal brand? You know, a brand is really made up of what you say and how you say it, plus how you look, and plus kind of what you do. And it's that third piece that's the most important, I think, because the first two can give you an opportunity. But if you're actually not very good at what you do, you won't get a second bite at the cherry. And your brand is all of those things added together. And they just lacked clarity on that, you know. And I think, I know we're going to talk about this in a minute because it's really important. But if you're going to go out and talk about things, you can just go out and add value. And that's absolutely fine. You can just talk about what your audience is interested in. But I think if you're not sure what you want to be, that's kind of going to hold a lot of people back until they, in quotes, get that sorted out. And it is a problem. And I know you've got a really simple way to get around that in a minute, which you're going to share with us. But I'd say that as well, that just not really sure what they stand for.
I have a question then, Andrew, because, you know, we work with a lot of people from various levels in the organization. What do you say to those people who say, I just don't have time? I don't have time to create something. I don't have time to respond to everybody. It's just, I'm so busy doing everything else that I couldn't possibly spend any time creating my personal brand. Because that is an excuse I hear a fair amount.
Yeah. So my response is I need half hour with you, Kirsty, every 3 months. And during that half hour, we'll record half hour's worth of video. And then we'll get the marketing team to chop that half hour into 30 to 40 second clips. We'll then take the transcript from that video and convert it into 3 blogs, and take the rest of the transcripts and convert it into 10 short form posts. So from one 30-minute sitting, you can stretch that content into 2 posts a week for an entire quarter. And we're running that exact playbook with the founders here at Fraser Dove.
Oh, perfect. Okay, now we have had a couple of comments that I want to bring up. So we've had this question, which is, if the topic is controversial or fear of being imperfect in a professional area, that's what holds them back. What would you say to that? They don't want to kind of push the boat or rock the boat or be chastised in any way.
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, I avoid politics and religion in the personal branding sphere. I think there are some topics that professionally I don't recommend you engage with too much. That's just my opinion, but each to their own. The fear of being imperfect, that's a challenge. Done is better than perfect when it comes to content creation. And it needs to be thought out. It needs to be purposeful. I think Mike made a great point around, you know, personal brand values and being intentional, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And in my, again, I've got a story about this. So I started off doing embarrassing walk and talk selfie videos 8 or 9 years ago, and just ranting whilst I was walking into my phone, and started to build a following. So started to believe my own hype a little bit, and thought, like you do, and thought I was going to be the next big media star. So I then went to one of the top studios in the country to get some professional videos done. I'm talking thousands I paid for these 10 years ago. And they were unbelievably good videos, And I posted those and they all totally bombed. And I mean bombed. I was getting about 10% of the engagement on those as I was with my sweaty red face with a coffee in my hand, you know, charging into work in the morning. And I think what that comes down to is that people don't trust perfection. Mm-hmm. And people trust people more than they trust businesses. If you look at the Amazon data, products that score 5 out of 5 sell less than products that score 4.5 out of 5. And it's because humans don't trust the 5 out of 5 ratings.
That makes so much sense, because I am that person. If I see 5s, I'm like, they're all fake. And I only trust like 3 or 4 star reviews. I never trust 5-star reviews ever.
Human nature. It's totally human nature. So to the point of our guest there, who's worried about being perfect, people don't trust perfect anyway. So why even attempt to achieve
I think the other thing is that the non-perfect piece is just more engaging. You know,
Yeah.
I remember seeing, this is years ago, people like Bill Gates were doing videos, obviously handheld videos on phones. Now, if Bill Gates does that, I mean, Bill Gates could hire Hollywood to produce his if he wanted to. Steven Spielberg could direct and that, you know, whatever. But he chose not to because he gets more engagement. I think the other piece around this as well, the controversial thing, I don't go down the politics. Occasionally touch upon it, but I'm not really into it heavily. It's more of an observation rather than taking a stand. And I certainly don't do anything to do with words that end in ist. It's not my thing at all. However, I think sometimes taking a stand on things that you believe in, and this is the thing, it's authenticity. And this 360 brew, this new LinkedIn algorithm is looking for authenticity. They're making it quite plain. Make it authentic. So you can get AI to write it if you like, but it's got to be authentic when someone reads it, else we will throw it out. And I think this authenticity, if you believe in something, even if it's a bit contentious, I think that's okay. My biggest, I think, impressions post was when I said, I think you should work in the office if you're starting out in your career. I think it's a mistake to work from home. Woof, did that get a little response? I don't know if people were really reading it in the end. They were just reading the heading and diving straight in there. But it's something that generated a debate, and I don't really care because it's something I believe in. So, you know, you choose whatever you like. But it is important, I think, to pick on things that you believe in, that you stand for.
Yeah, I think Danny's really summed it up well here. He's commented, you have to get used to being uncomfortable and to be comfortable when creating. And I really like that. I think it's
it's true. Yeah, thank you, Danny. Yeah.
So we have had some really, really good questions, and they lead into stuff that we're going to talk about later. So I promise I've seen your questions. I'm going to bring them up, I swear. So the next thing I want to talk about before we start talking about what people can individually do to help build their own brand, I want to know sort of what exactly are we representing? And we've had a lot of people kind of commenting about how we represent that. So to begin with, what kind of points are we trying to get across within our personal brand, Andrew?
Yeah, so is this probably a good time to start talking about personal brand values? Which is basically a guiding principle. So a lot of people on the stream would have seen corporate values, right? Which say you've got a logo that has to be this big, has to be in this particular color, this particular font. Your personal brand values is a much more simplified version of that, but helps you every time you post to make sure that you're building a consistent, transparent brand that will resonate with your target audience. And we have a really simple 3x3 grid, Kirsty, that we use to guide things. So in the first column, there's 3 boxes. And in those 3 boxes, we ask everybody who's trying to build a personal brand to write 3 topics that they're A, passionate about, and B, know more than the majority of the population about. That's the only 2 things that we stipulate. So for me, it was hiring, careers, and personal branding. They're the 3 things that were in the first column in my personal brand values doc. For a recruiter in technology, for example, who we helped, they had DE&I. They're very passionate about that. They had technology and how it's being used in hiring, and they had sustainability. They were 3 topics that they decided were going to be core pillars in that personal brand plan. Okay, so that's the first column. So we've got the topics that we're going to post on. The next bit is about tone and about your brand values in terms of how do you want your voice to come across. And for me, it was about empathetic. That's one thing that was important, but also challenger. To Mike's point, I think if you look at my highest performing post and how I built the brand, I was holding a mirror up to things in the industry that I felt were wrong, very genuinely, not for clicks, because I genuinely felt they were wrong, in the same way as Mike believes that working in the office is great for young people to learn and develop, right? Like it's real. It's got to be real. But yep. So for me, it was empathy, it was challenger tone, and it was progressive. They were the 3 things that were tone voices. And then in the third column, it's about the audience. So we say, and what are the 3 things that your audience are looking for? So for me, it was they were looking for recognition, they're looking for clarity. I think we could all do with some clarity in the current ecosystem. I mean, if you could bottle clarity and sell it at the moment, then we wouldn't need to be on this stream. We'd be in Antigua, wouldn't we, at this point? But anyway, clarity is another one that I was trying to deliver. And actionable tips was the other thing that I said. Like, that's what they want. They don't want theory. They want stuff that they can go and do something with. Playbooks, as I call them. My book's called the Job Search Playbook, right? That's available on Amazon. Any job seekers on who haven't read it yet, please do. I'm really proud of the impact that that's had. But that's all about playbooks. It's about actionable tips around how you do certain things. So anyone can create that 3x3.
We'll put a link. We'll put a link to that if you give that to Kirsty. We'll put a link to that in the comments for people.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, please do.
No worries at all. So just on that, I just wanted to ask you a question. In the way you just described it and put your own in there, it's like boom, 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 boom. Is it safe to say that you didn't just sit down and 20 minutes later you got those? Is it safe to say that it took you some time to evolve them and to be able to articulate what you wanted? Because I think people fear that because they find it hard, there's something wrong with them and everybody else has cracked it. And I don't believe that for a minute. But do you think it takes time to develop those 9 boxes?
Yeah, I think it does take time. I think it's a great question and a lot of reflection. And I think also it's useful to speak to other people about it. Either someone to coach you through the process or people that know you. I always think, and I say this to people before interview, I always think there's clues in things like your LinkedIn recommendations. So if you say to someone what your strengths, they'll tell you some stuff. But if you go to LinkedIn recommendations, there'll be stuff that's embedded in there that's uniquely you that you didn't even realize. Because it's innate, you didn't even realize that was your superpower. So I had one recently, this lady who was going into interview and she was like, I don't know how to answer the strengths question. I normally say, I'm both strategic and tactical. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like, it's pretty generic, but it's cool. Looked at her LinkedIn recommendations and 2 of them spoke about how she built trust quickly with people anywhere in the world. I'm like, that's your superpower. Yeah. Your strength is your ability to build trust anywhere. And she was, well, what do you mean? Everyone builds trust. I was like, they don't. You might assume they do, but I promise you they don't. That is a fantastic.
That is the thing with a business superpower, though, isn't it? Is that people assume everyone has it.
Yeah, because it's innate. Yeah, because
and they don't. Natural. Yeah.
That's really true. Common. We find in leaders of recruitment firms, especially because they are normally the top people in the industry, because that's why they're in their own organization, and they kind of can't believe that everybody doesn't work exactly the same way as them. They're the top 1% and they forget that. So I think that's amazing. Sort of following on from that, this person's asked, so does your personal brand evolve and change as you do, and how often should you revisit it? So there's an element of, is it the same throughout your career, or do you kind of go back? Does it change with you? How does it work?
Yeah, so for me personally, I've always had an overarching mission. And I've pivoted, but always pivoted within that mission. And my mission is to end career-based misery. So every post I do, every job I take, every podcast I agree to appear on, every panel I sit on, I always ask myself, from a personal branding point of view, does this fit in line with this mission? Now, I think there are a lot of recruiters out there who are miserable because they're not winning enough work and they're not differentiated enough. And so what you're doing is contributing to ending career-based misery. So I'm like, yeah, I'm up for it. Let's go. So I think having an overarching mission is a good idea, and then pivoting underneath that, because sometimes you might want to change the audience up. So, for one individual, you might be working in, for example, the software industry for a while, recruiting there, but then you might pivot all of a sudden into medtech or into pharma or something. So of course, you're going to want to kind of change the content a little bit to make sure that it's tailored to your audience. But I think it's nice if you've got an overarching mission or some kind of North Star, just like a company would have, that you lean into when you're deciding your direction and your content.
I think that's interesting, because a lot of people think about mission as just being Billy bullshit, really, to sit on the website. And of course, no one really takes any notice of that anyway. I think it's more of an internal thing for you and your team to say, this is where we're headed. This is what we're about here. I hate to use the Simon Sinek thing, because I once wrote a LinkedIn post slagging him off and LinkedIn deleted it. So there you go. So I'm not going to I'm not going to say anything bad about Simon Sinek. I love it, actually. But I do think this whole why concept gets a bit carried away. Genuinely, I mean, because we're all there to make money and have a great time, really. But I think this thing of what you believe in, what do you really believe in? What is important to you? That what you're trying to achieve, as well as make money and have a good time and retire early and everything. I think you're right to put that together, because that kind of moves with you from whatever market you happen to be in. It moves with you, obviously. Doesn't change really.
Totally.
understanding what that is really important. So it's a very good point.
I do have a kind of follow-up question. Oh, sorry, Andrew. I did just have a follow-up question based on what you said as well. You mentioned more than one audience and sort of developing, but can you have more than one audience at the same time? Say you have two distinct client networks. Maybe you do, I don't know, legal and tech or legal and medical. Can you have two audiences? How do you balance that?
Yeah, you definitely can. You just have to find the common pain points and wants of those two areas. So if, for example, so we have some guys who work in our business services team who recruit HR, IT, legal and finance within a particular vertical in a particular location. So they've got 4 or 5 different audiences. And so we're saying to them, okay, cool. Well, what do all of those have in common? Well, they're an enabling function. Yeah. They're often undervalued internally because stakeholders think they can do their job better than the corporate functions could do it. Yeah, they're all striving to get a seat at the top table and to be driving the agenda rather than reacting to it. So if you've got more than one audience, work out what the commonalities are and where those circles cross over. And the sweet spot in the middle is where you need to hit your content.
I also think you should lean into LinkedIn newsletters, because you can have as many of those as you like, obviously, and then you can encourage people to subscribe to the one that relates to them. And then when you publish a newsletter article, it just goes to the people who subscribe. So I think as well, sometimes it is difficult, I accept what you say, to write for more than one audience. It's like, well, the nuances on this or that, but the LinkedIn newsletters will help you do that a lot more effectively.
Yeah, I've never had a newsletter, interestingly.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, we're massive fans. Yeah, because you can have as many of those as you like, and you can therefore craft them for the audience. So it's like doing posts, but just to a set of people.
Yeah, direct marketing your posts almost.
Yeah, kind of, really. And of course, the other benefit of LinkedIn newsletters is that they don't get bounced by spam checkers. They because it's LinkedIn.
No, of course. LinkedIn, I get them in my inbox all the time. For the ones that I'm signing up. Probably yours. Probably yours. Yeah. Okay, well that's a good to do for me. That's good. I think I'm gonna.
Everybody's learned something today.
Yeah,
isn't that a powerful day?
But it's true.
I think that's also the thing around this topic, isn't it?
Well, there's pros and cons, but if you are servicing more than one market, or if you're trying to write for clients and you're trying to write for your candidates and they're not the same people, then it's just a way to do that. But yeah, okay. Got that.
Okay. All right. So I've had another question here that I think a couple of people are wondering around as well. For personal brand creation, do you think words and pictures, i.e. blogs or I guess newsletters, can be effective, or does it need to be video content? What are your thoughts on this, Andrew?
Yeah. So I think a mix of all of it is the best strategy. If you look at the metrics, the metrics the posts that I've had that have gone the furthest have certainly been written posts, and we've had a number that have had over 1 million impressions in the last few years. But the most impactful posts, whilst the vanity metrics don't show it, have been more video related, and it's because that's a more rich interaction in many ways than a written post. So we always try and go for a blend is the short answer. I don't think you have to stick to one particular thing. I mean, photographs are very popular at the moment as well, and I think that humanizes the post to some extent. So I'm not surprised to see them doing well. But for us, it's a blend, which is a bit of a sit on the fence answer, but is honestly the approach that we take and recommend.
I was researching this 360 brew because it is going to impact all of us. And it's not just about LinkedIn posts. It's about who sees job adverts and a whole bunch of other stuff. And apparently, because we really like video, and I use it quite a bit, but LinkedIn, the brew, is not so keen on video now. It used to be really keen and promote the stuff. It's not suppressing them, but it's not promoting them as much. And the other thing is, the hero photograph that we all do. Take a photograph of yourself. Well, apparently LinkedIn's not so keen on those either now. So you have to be careful. What it's looking for carousels it likes, apparently.
It's always like carousels, though.
It does always like carousels, but carousels it likes. And steer clear, obviously, of anything that's AI generated. You don't want to do that. And steer clear as well of anything that's corporate, like anyone that in the marketing department has mocked up for you, because LinkedIn doesn't like that. So I wouldn't bother with that. So just keep it real, man. I think you can't go too far wrong. But I would say on video, and we were talking about this off air, we both said actually that you communicate to a new level with video, because there's body language and personality and there's interaction, which you can't get in a written post. So people start to feel they know you a little bit. You kind of understand what you're about, not necessarily from what you say, although that's important, but how you say it. And I think it's important. I think everyone should have, even if you don't want to do LinkedIn Lives like this, which I understand, get yourself a little YouTube channel and interview some people, interview some clients who've done some great things or something. You don't have to just try and do kind of like we do, like coaching or training. You can just share people's stories, but it will give you an extra level for your brand, which I think is important.
Yeah, I agree. So we have got a couple more questions that I want to come to you, Andrew, in a second. But before then, Mike, I believe it's time from a message from our sponsors. And the
that's us, isn't it? Yeah. It is us. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. Right. So we've got a Zoom webinar coming up. It's a bit lastminute.com because it's on Thursday. And what we did was we researched all the notes, discovery and planning notes that we've had with my private clients, over 150 of them now. And we looked at the things that were common obstacles. So none of this is personal, just in case you're worried. None of it's that. We just brought everything together, and there were 20 obstacles that cropped up over and over again. And we are going to focus on the 5 biggest obstacles to recruitment success, which is research-based. And then we're going to show you how to beat them. And we're doing that in 2 ways. We're talking about the topics like we are now, but also we have a kind of a case study, Bob the recruiter, that's sort of grown and shrunk a couple of times, and now he wants to get it right, and he's bringing in these principles to make it work. It's really cool. It's October the 3rd, which is Thursday, 5 p.m. to 7:30. There is a break, and I'm telling you now, that goes a lot quicker than you think, and it's free, right? So if you want to come on that, all you need to do is email webinar to mike@flair.co.uk. So if you're listening to this on our podcast, that's Mike, M-I-K-E, at flair, F-L-A-I-R.co.uk. Just put webinar in the email subject line, and I will either email you a link so you can join us live, or if it's after we've gone, then you'll get a link to the recording so you can watch it. Not as good as attending live, I will admit, but nonetheless, you can still get the main gist of the content. Okay, Kirsty.
Okay, fantastic. Very much looking forward to that. Okay, so we've got a couple more questions that I kind of really think are great. So this question's been asked in various forms, but somebody's asked, what about not just creating our own content, but also engaging with other people's, adding valuable comments and engaging? Is that a part of your kind of brand building as well?
Can I dive in and say, I don't believe in this, which is why we've invited Andrew on the show. Oh, wait, maybe I do believe in this.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think engaging with other people's content is certainly valuable. Tom Dove, who's one of the founders at Fraser Dove here this morning, was showing me that his most engaged bit of content so far this month has been a comment.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting, because in the same way as if you appear on somebody else's podcast, you get exposure to their audience. If you appear in somebody else's comments, you get exposure to their audience. So it's good. It's a good play. Make them meaningful. If they're less than 10 words, don't bother. Don't write the word agree or anything silly like that. Like, add value in the comments. It's really important. It's a really good gift. You're also gifting that person engagement, which helps them with the algorithm and means that more people are going to see their posts. So it's a nice way. It's a really nice thing to do with clients, actually, to have them in your funnel as a person that anytime they post that you're commenting and adding value without asking for anything in return. There's also some evidence to suggest, and I don't know with the new 360 Brew how this fits, that people that pay into the ecosystem before they post receive better reach.
Yeah, that was always the case. If you post and then comment, if you post and then comment on 3 or 4 people's posts, it doesn't matter what those posts are, who they are, then LinkedIn likes that. But I'm not clear on whether that continues, but LinkedIn are very, very keen on interactions. I know that. So I suspect that there's still something in that. But Richard van der Blom, who we follow religiously on LinkedIn, he says, have a week where you just comment on 30 people's posts a day. Just do it for a week and see what happens. We did it, and it is amazeballs the amount of interaction you get. I often think, well, I just won't bother posting ever again. I'll just comment on other people's posts. It's amazing if you do that, so it might be worth an experiment on that one.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so this question I think is a really useful one. I think a lot of recruiters are going to appreciate this question. There's evidence that suggests bias and discrimination in the recruitment industry. What evidence do you have for people who are applying for opportunities using their personal brand and are not getting past that first page? So this, I guess, would be more for the candidates, I guess.
Cool, yeah. Well, there's a whole show that could be based on overcoming bias in recruitment. So that's a pretty big topic that we're doing. But let me just kind of spitball some ideas here. The first thing, and I don't mean this in a glib way, but it kind of goes back to what Mike was talking about earlier. I believe that the success within personal branding, but also way bigger than that, within careers, within life, right? We're almost getting into red wine territory here, is all about aligning who you are with what you do. So great personal brands are when you align who you are with what you do. Great jobs, great careers are about aligning who you are with what you do. Yeah. Now, there is an argument to say that if you're applying for roles at companies that have not tackled bias and not getting an interview, that's completely unfair, but you've dodged a bullet. Because if your personal brand and what you stand for is authentic, and based on that, they're not inviting you for interview, you probably shouldn't be working there, frankly. So that's what I would say about that particular piece. I would also say, and this is a lot about what we talk about in the job search playbook, that job adverts themselves are the lowest possible hit rate for interviews, and that your network directly targeting your dream employers and commenting on their content, loose ties who can refer you into places, and headhunters are way better routes to market than purely applying for job ads. So they were the two things that came to mind when I saw it. What do you reckon, Mike?
I think that's true. I can't. I'm not a recruiter anymore, so I can't really add any comment to that. But what I will do is just build on something you said there. If most recruitment firms do the analysis, they'll find that a small number of clients bring in a large amount of their revenue. And we call it the 80-20 rule because of Pareto. It might not be exactly 20% of your clients bringing 80% of your revenue, but it's going to be something like that. If you examine those 20%ers, those high value clients, the vast majority of those will have come from a relationship. It won't have come from any marketing, selling things in or whatever, especially these days when the economy is flatter. And I think the value of your network, the value of the people that like you and trust you and want to help you has always been important, becoming increasingly important. And one of the things that we're talking about today with personal brand is part of that. How are we going to build and feed that network of people that perhaps know of us, and then they know us, and then they like us, and then if we ask for help, they'll help us, or even maybe they'll just offer help anyway, or offer an opportunity our way. So rather, I don't want to twist personal branding into everything, but it is a key element of networking for sure.
Yeah, and we've got the data, our own in-house data at Fraser Dove shows that we're three more times to convert a client call into a retained search if we've been referred in.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Right, of course.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that. Same goes with job seekers or candidates or whatever your situation is. Get referred in. That's the magic.
I think on job seeking, I remember when I was a recruiter, one of the things that used to flummox me is that people would blank you until they were looking for a job. And really what you need to do is keep the relationships going even when you're not looking for a job, because then when you are looking for help or a job, it doesn't seem weird and exploitative. Is that a word, exploitative? Or I just make that up? I don't know. Right. But they're exploiting you, and then, okay, I've got a job now, you can clear off until the next time. So I think this continual feeding of the network with your content and adding value, showing the real you, the authentic you, and never stopping to do that is, again, great for looking for jobs, looking for contracts, or in fact, looking for clients.
Yeah, we're regularly getting referred in by people I've never met.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So that's the future of the world, isn't it? Okay, so I very, very quickly want to look at some mistakes very quickly because we overran because you had some really good questions. So I believe this question is probably going to highlight one of the biggest mistakes people are making. Someone said, in the age of generative AI, where personal content can easily sound templated or algorithmic, how can one stay genuine and original whilst building a personal brand? How do we ensure our tone and voice still reflect who we truly are, our character, our communication style, rather than the AI behind those words? AI is the big one here. How do we kind of avoid that mistake?
Yeah, I knew AI was going to come up at some point. So I'm not surprised to see it on the screen at all. Look, I think that the broader point around that we'll get to will be our tip at the end around your authentic voice, I think is how we get around it. But also I think content mix is really important, Kirsty, to answer this question. So I see some people that only personal stuff because that tends to get huge engagement. Yeah. Others that go, I'm not going to post any personal stuff. I'm going to keep in this lane of it being more thought leadership and value add. And then I see others who only post calls to action. So apply for this job, come to my webinar, come work for us, work with us here on our new website, right? And these are the three buckets. What I've tried to do is to build a momentum that covers all three of those buckets in a 60-20-20. So I believe that 60% of your time, your content should be audience focused. So helping people in line with your personal brands and adding value, pure value add, 60% of the time. I think 20% of the time, a bit of personal does go a long way and helps with the know, like, trust. I've taken a bit of time to get there. I was part of the This Is Not Facebook crew when all that started off. I didn't like the fact that that's the way it was going, but I now accept that it turns out that people at work are also humans. So that's been a really good revelation. I know. Big news. Who'd have thought it? So 20% personal. So I now include, updates around hobbies or family or whatever it might be, or something more humorous and just personal life focused. And then 20% call to action. And you do need the call to action to help convert it. So if you think about that on an average, if you were posting every day during the week, it would be 3 days pure value add, 1 day personal, 1 day call to action in that kind of funnel shape. And by the end of the week, hopefully people would know, like, and trust you because of what you delivered, and that your call to action would land and get you a good outcome.
I think that's really interesting because we have a promo, obviously, for the show. We have a show every 2 weeks, and I usually write one promo for it. But then we have webinars and other things as well that we need to promo. So I found that pretty much every post I made was a promo. Now, I think I'm adding value, but of course you're right. You're asking people to do something. So I've now taken to posting pretty much every day. I haven't really thought about it in the 60-20-20, but I really like that. Going to take that away with me. But I do try and add value more than not. I don't use AI to write any of it. I think if you can do it in your voice, that's great. But what I do, and I find this works better for me, I tend not to be prescriptive on what I write about. So in other words, I sit down, I'm not really sure what I'm going to write about sometimes, and they're the best ones. I never schedule posts ever. I just think they lack that energy. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I like to have an idea, think about it, write it, post it straight out. And there for me, I think they've got more authenticity for me, and they do better for sure, because I've tried everything. And that's the one that seems to get the most coverage.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. And as I said earlier, you don't want to have the content constipation where you can't think of anything. And I just, everyone has asked me, like, well, where do you get your ideas from? And I'm like, just the conversations that we're having. Like, as recruiters, we're so lucky that we have 10 conversations a day, right?
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. I think once you get into it, and once you get into turning a conversation into a thought, into a post, it's easy. I have too many things to write about. I have to choose.
Yeah, same. I've got my next 70 in a list in my phone. My next 70.
Yeah, I suppose I should keep a list, but I just, like today, I'll go through and answer the comments because we haven't had a chance to answer all the questions. If you have time to answer a few of them, Andrew, that's great. We've asked enough of you as it is, but if you can, that would be great. But I'll go through and answer every single one that's in there. And out of that, I could probably pick 6 to 8 posts.
Spot on. Yeah.
I do have kind of one follow-up question, and this is going to be the last question, unfortunately, guys, and then we've got to close up. Danny said, can you recycle content that you've previously used maybe months or years before, as long as it's still relevant? And that's a good idea. Is that a good idea for kind of getting new content, Andrew?
Yes. You can recycle content. Just change the format would be my advice. So if you had a topic that went really well last time on a written post, do exactly the same post, but do it in video this time.
Well, Richard van der Blom, our hero, he says you absolutely have to. He said because nobody reads all your posts. And in fact, only a small percentage of your posts is read by the people that you're mixed with. So if it's really important, post it loads of times, obviously reworded and, as you say, in a different format, but you absolutely must do that because otherwise your message won't get across.
Amazing. So in a second, we're going to come to Andrew for his top tip that he sort of alluded to just a second ago. But before then, Mike, can we talk about our next show in 2 weeks?
I certainly can. There we are. We're going to be running a successful virtual recruitment firm. Now, Charles McGill used to be a client for many years, 4 or 5 years, actually, I think. He lives in Spain. That's just an also-ran. You don't have to live in a foreign country to make this work. But he runs a very successful virtual team. He's certainly got people in England. I think he might have someone in Spain and someone else, maybe in India. I don't know, but we'll find out. But our focus is going to be on how he does his business development, how he does his delivery, and how he runs his team. Because I think virtual teams are here to stay. However, many people fail to get them to work properly. Well, Charles has smashed it, and he's doing incredibly well. So that's going to be a great show, and I'm really looking forward to having him on there.
Very much excited about it. He's a good egg as well. He's just a good egg as well. So.
I'm jealous of him being in Spain already. I could have done with some of that yesterday when we were getting soaked on the way to the station. I hate him already.
We all do.
I'm sure he'll bring that out. He was all tanned and everything.
Yeah, awful.
Okay, Andrew. So this time of the show, we've obviously talked about a lot today. You've given a lot of tips. Everyone in the comments has been very, very appreciative of it. But people are watching this and they're thinking, right, I want to develop my personal brand and I want to do that using LinkedIn. Kind of what is your top tip for them today?
Yep. So my top tip, Kirsty, and it was the tip that was given to me before to help build an audience. We're about 112,000 followers on LinkedIn now and growing hopefully still. And the simple tip that was given to me that inspired a lot of that was to write as you speak. Write as you speak. I think, as we said earlier, people try and over manicure their posts. People want to hear your voice and they can tell when it's your voice. And a really cool thing to do is actually to dictate the post rather than type it. Because if you talk on a topic and dictate the post, actually you are literally writing as you speak when you then place that text and format it quickly for a post. So all of you, get brave, write as you speak, avoid the ChatGPT nonsense. The algorithm knows it's from ChatGPT. The audience knows it's from ChatGPT. What they want to hear from is you. And the more digital the world gets, the more human people are going to be craving. So lean into that.
100% got my vote on that one.
I love it. Okay, so unfortunately, we have come towards the end of the show now. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for watching and for all of your comments. It always makes the show so special when you do that. So thank you very much. If you are new, feel free to think about subscribing to the page on LinkedIn or on YouTube, or of course, the podcast as well. I want to say a huge thank you to Andrew for adding so much value today and for being so kind of open and honest and just giving so much knowledge from. So thank you, Andrew, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a really good discussion.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, I suppose I should thank Kirsty for the Kirsty Ames show for making it all work. Weirdly, actually, without Kirsty, it is really hard. So thank you, Kirsty, for making it all work. And of course, thank you again to Andrew, who's just been fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And thank you to you, Mike, for being here and looking so fabulous with the hair, the shirt and everything. Okay, so as always, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.